Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the Johns Hopkins School of Education Master in Science Education Policy virtual webinar. My name is Sion John. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Also here with me, I have my colleague from the Office of Admissions, and he will introduce himself.
Thank you, Sion. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're logging in from. I love seeing such a broad group of attendees today. So thank you all for being here with us. My name is James McCarty. I am the Associate Director of Admission here at Johns Hopkins University in the School of Education. I'm rather new to my role. I've been here for just under 2 months now, but I share that with all of you to say that I've been blown away in those 2 months to see the immersive experiences that our students have with both our staff members and faculty members. And I'm excited for all of you today to learn about some of those immersive and didactic experiences that you can have at Johns Hopkins in the School of Education within the educational policy major. I always think it's important to share that my role in admissions is essentially being the point person for this program. And no matter what, I want to be a resource and an advocate for all of you. So please, after the webinar today, if you have other questions, if you'd like to connect, or if there's anything that I can do to help or support you through the admissions and application process, please know that you are never, ever progressing through this alone. I'm here to walk with you every step of the way. My contact information will be shared at the end of the webinar, and I'll also put it in the chat as well. So please feel free after the webinar to stay connected. I look forward to working with all of you and enjoy the program today on our educational policy program here at Johns Hopkins. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, James. And also presenting today, we have Professor and Faculty Lead of the Master of Science in Education Policy Program, Dr. Dennis Kramer, joining us today. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. First, today's webinar is being recorded. We will be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. And before we get started, I would like to share the agenda for today's virtual webinar. We will kick off the presentation sharing an overview of the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Then Dr. Kramer will go over the details of the education policy program. And lastly, I'll wrap it up with admissions requirements and leave the floor open for questions at the end. And to start, we are one of 9 schools at Johns Hopkins University. We began offering college courses for teachers in 1909 and then became our own school in 2007. And we are proud to share that the Johns Hopkins School of Education is consistently ranked one of the top schools in education by the U.S. News and World Report. And for school enrollment, we have approximately 1,741 students. We offer 25 graduate programs, which includes our doctoral, master's, and graduate certificate programs. And we have a strong network of over 24,000 SOE alums. And for faculty introduction, Dr. Dennis Kramer is a visiting associate professor and the faculty lead for the education policy program here at the Johns Hopkins School of Education. Dr. Kramer's research focuses on using behavioral insights to understand education-based decision-making, the antecedents and outcomes of federal, state, and local policies, and broadly, the economics of education. His work has been featured in several top peer-reviewed journals within higher education, education policy, and public administration. And before his current role, Dr. Kramer served on the faculty at the University of Florida and was the founding director of the UF Education Policy Research Center. At this time, I would like to hand the floor over to Dr. Kramer. Welcome.
Thanks, Sion, and welcome, everyone. I'm not sure that I can match the energy of James, which is saying a lot because I tend to bring the energy, but I want to echo James's sentiment. Really excited that you're all here. Excited in general that you are looking to sort of continue and or advance your sort of academic career and thinking about education policy, at Johns Hopkins or in at Johns Hopkins or another area. As you all probably know, a lot is happening in the education policy space. And we're really excited about the program that we have here at Johns Hopkins and about the focus that we have within this program and what we can do to serve our students going forward. So next slide. So as you sort of, think about this, and as you sort of have thought about sort of education policy as a potential career path, right? What we have sort of seen over the past, couple of decades with education policy is this sort of shift. The shift in the education policy landscape over the last 2 decades. And that shift really began with the No Child Left Behind legislation. And this is a sort of critical piece of legislation that put in forefront, accountability, testing, and other education policies that are aimed at sort of increasing academic performance and standards. That accountability shift or that policy shift is accelerating over time. And we see sort of large state education agencies, large urban school districts, state higher education organizations are now providing critical compliance, innovation, policy development, and implementation processes where they need specialized staff and individuals to play those roles. And as agencies shift from merely sort of a compliance unit to a policy forward or policy initiating unit, they have to carry out a variety of these interventions, right? And a lot of interventions stem around new accountability policies, either structural changes for schools and teachers, or sort of incentive-based changes that help to induce changes in school performance. It could be around sort of governance policies, right? Developing, expanding, choice options, or engaging in fiscal reform, moving from formula-based funding to sort of block grant funding, or thinking about innovative ways to allocate resources to sort of maximize those returns. We have policy changes around curriculum, either sort of expanding or constricting curricular options, right? All of those choices have certainly impacts on sort of student outcomes. Then we have sort of broad assessment models, right? How often do we assess students? In what modality are students assessed? When are they assessed? What is on the assessments themselves, right? Are all really important kind of policy questions that particularly K-12 school districts and states are facing as they look for ways to support high academic achievement. But what we know about this sort of education policy shift is that this sort of shift is not isolated solely to these local state education organizations, right? Think tanks, nonprofit organizations, and other sort of like third-party entities are beginning to focus more on education policy as these policies become ingrained in a variety of other environments, right? These sort of agents, these sort of organizations, these think tanks and nonprofit organizations, they play a really important role as they provide support, help inform the conversation for their audiences and members. They provide sophisticated or more complex and robust analyses and evaluation of policies that are sort of being discussed widely on social media or in sort of policy circles. And they help to provide a diverse perspective on sort of education policies that we have some evidence on in terms of being effective in driving achievement upwards. So next slide, please. So why sort of give you a brief introduction into the education policy landscape is because with all that in mind, Johns Hopkins created this education policy program in a way to teach not only comprehensive education policy, but to think about education policy from a research-based perspective, integrating real-world opportunities and ensuring that our students are leaving with work environment ready skills so they can inform, education policy happen at the K-12 level, but also at the sort of higher education and post-secondary level as well. So you sort of think about our program here as one that takes not only sort of content knowledge, content education policy knowledge, but that embeds that knowledge in real world examples. The program is between 33 and 36 credits. There's an optional credit for an experiential learning opportunity for you. Our program is online, so we do all of our instruction via Canvas. There is a 1 week DC-based seminar that's held in the summer of your first semester. During this seminar, we'll talk about a little bit later. We bring in prominent speakers to come and have conversations with you, to talk about their experiences, to talk about what they see critical education policy kind of topics or challenges facing policymakers. For example, at our last year's seminar, former Secretary of Education John King came and talked about sort of his role when he was when he worked in New York, when he was the Secretary of Education for President Obama, and now in his role as the president of the Education Trust, right? He came and spoke about these like pressing issues with our cohort of students. And the students could engage in a dialogue. And so this DC-based seminar or week-long intensive is meant to sort of expose our students to a unique set of education policy makers that, leveraging our sort of geographic location, right, in near DC and near the federal education policy conversation, right? We bring high-level and thoughtful speakers and provide that sort of experiential learning opportunity for our students. Most of our students finish between 1 and 2 years. Part-time students, it takes 2 years. Full-time students, it takes 1 year. I think a question we typically get is, what's the breakdown of that? I would say about 60% of our students attend full-time, about 40% attend part-time. But we've developed sort of a flexible schedule that allows you to attend either full-time or part-time based on your sort of work commitments or other sort of scheduling demands that you have. I think what makes our program unique is that all of our faculty come from a significant background in education or public policy. All the faculty in this program believe that in order to execute and be a really thoughtful and innovative education policy entrepreneur, you have to have that experience in the trenches. And so, we have individuals who are research heads at sort of large think tank organizations, or individuals who have worked at the the U.S. Department of Education, to individuals who were the sort of chief education executive in states, right? Our goal as part of this program is to expose our students to not only a diverse set of faculty, but faculty who have diverse applied policy experiences. And so some of our faculty have transitioned to academia after their work in public policy, but they can talk about sort of the role of academics in informing applied education policy. Next slide, please. So this sort of breaks down the sequence. I do want to note that what is unique about this program is that all of our students complete a rigorous 3-course research and statistics sequence, starting in the summer with your introductory to statistics, taking intermediate statistics in your first fall, and then taking an understanding education research design course in your sort of last summer or last semester that you would be enrolled, right? The goal here is to provide you with a unique and marketable skill set that local school districts, state agents, education agencies, and large nonprofit and think tank organizations are looking for. When I was out in the education policy space, I wanted to find graduates who had the skill set that sort of our course sequence provides. So, most education policy programs have a single sort of research methods course. We lean into that because we think that's a critical piece to not only being a critical consumer of education policy information, but also to be a critical evaluator of education policy information. And so that is a key piece. We also have built in over this last 6 months some flexibility for students to take elective courses, right? So some of these courses, when you sit down with me after you enroll in the program, we'll develop an individual sort of education plan for you. And so if you're if there's a course that is not as applicable to your long-term career ambitions, we are going to try and find a substitute for you that is better aligned with your career ambitions. Our goal as part of this program is to provide you with, again, tangible and meaningful experiences that are going to help you advance your career. Next slide, please. So again, as I sort of alluded to, the primary educational outcome of the program is to prepare our students to analyze and evaluate education research, to translate that research into tangible education policy proposals, priorities, and to help you to contribute effectively to the policy conversations that are happening at a variety of levels, right? So either in government agencies, legislative offices, think tanks, state-run organizations, or nonprofits that focus on education, right? Again, we have a very intentional focus on sort of that analyze and evaluation component of education research. And then how do we take that and translate that into meaningful work? And so you can sort of see here, these are sort of the standards that we hold, that I hold my faculty to as part of this program, right? One, can you sort of analyze, can our graduates analyze and evaluate education research, right? Do they have sort of the fundamental knowledge and experiences to talk about and critique the structures of the current public education system, and know how those systems relate to other systems across the nation? Do you understand sort of national and international education data? Most importantly, can you translate these recommendations for different stakeholders, right? We work a lot in, not just writing long academic papers, but how do we write for various policy audiences, right? Writing for a governor and writing for a secretary of education is very different than writing for sort of constituents or writing for the general public. And so across all of our courses, you'll get a variety of different sort of assessments, assignments, or activities that push your sort of thinking and writing abilities in different sort of contexts. For example, one of my classes and one of the assignments is writing writing for social media, right? One of the assignments talks about informing or influencing education policy in a social media environment, right? Because a lot of conversations happen and we have to be able to write effectively in that medium in order to sort of inform those conversations. We hope that, you will continue as part of this program to analyze current and proposed federal and state legislation and regulatory language for their potential impacts. This given our sort of proximity to the DC, the DC area, oftentimes lends itself to intense real world opportunities. In the Introductory to Education Policy course that I taught this summer, we actually discussed legislation and regulations that were being discussed by the Department of Education simultaneously. And students wrote comments on proposed regulatory changes and submitted them to the Department of Education as part of our class, right? So let's get your thoughts immediately, right? This is first summer for our incoming students. Let's get your thoughts immediately into the sort of federal conversation. And so that, again, it reinforces the real world applications that we want to bring with our courses into the education policy space. And again, I say that the sort of assessment in our courses is not predominantly like academic papers, where there's very few courses where we'll be writing 10, 15, 20-page papers. We are going to focus primarily on sort of reports, policy memos, op-eds, briefings, because those are sort of the currency in the education policy development process, right? If, it's one thing to be able to communicate your thoughts in 15 to 20 pages. It's another thing to do it in 1 page. And in the education policy context, you oftentimes don't get the time for a 20-page extrapolation of an education policy topic. You get 5-10 minutes. And so you have to find a way to communicate that in a very effective way. And so we push you and help you develop those skills as part of this program. Next question, please. Next slide, please. So as I said, we do hold a 5-day residency in DC during the first semester of your program. We have historically targeted late July, first week in August, but our current education policy fellows are helping me think through what is the optimal time for that in that first summer. It is held in combination with your Introductory to Education Policy course. Again, this is because in conjunction with the course, we try to sort of balance out those sort of time demands, but it is supposed to be like an immersive opportunity. There's cohort building opportunities for those that can attend in person. We will spend some time down in DC, maybe going to the Hill, talking to legislators. In addition to these sort of speakers that are going to come and provide you their experiences in the education policy space. We will make the full itinerary available to students. But I want to stress that this sort of residency is primarily targeted for our new incoming students. For a small subset of speakers, we may invite the entire college, but most speakers are going to be in a very small setting, 15 to 25 students, depending on how big the cohort is. And it's meant for you to get a unique experience talking to those policymakers. And so we usually have like a morning speaker and an afternoon speaker. And then we have some time around the lunchtime for some cohort building, or some relaxation depending on what your preference is. But it really is a fun experience, and an experience that I think sets the Johns Hopkins program apart from others. Next slide, please. So just sort of like transitioning to like what does set this program apart from others of its kind, I could tell you that there is no better set of faculty leaders than there are the Johns Hopkins program. These faculty members who teach in this program bring exceptional credentials with them that go along with their high-level real-world experiences. It's one thing to talk about sort of implementing K-12 accountability policies. It's another to talk about implementing K-12 accountability policies with somebody who is charged with implementing them in the entire state, right? It's one thing to talk about sort of student loan debt relief in sort of the absence. It's another to get exposure to individuals who were in the room, with leadership when the student loan debt relief program was being discussed and implemented, right? And so I believe that you will benefit uniquely from those conversations, right? Because they're gonna provide insights that otherwise are not known, and it allows you to build your network, right? Because we have faculty from a variety of settings, right? Our networks are not just isolated in sort of the Baltimore and DC areas. We have faculty that have networks that reach across the entire nation and internationally that can help you pursue your sort of next line of your career. Our program also has coursework that is intentionally designed around intense, thoughtful content and research training that are these sort of content alignments are designed to provide you with the skills that you're going to need to be a critical contributor to education policy reform in whatever context you choose to pursue after graduation. Next slide, please. So we also, this year was our first year of developing our Education Policies Fellows program. Our Education Policy Fellows, it's a additional piece of our application. It is a subset of our incoming students who want to gain an additional experience in the education policy setting. So it provides a sort of a financial scholarship to defray the cost of the program a little bit, but it also exposes you to additional education policymakers and practitioners as part of your involvement in this program. You will work with me and other education policy fellows to help us identify the speakers we want to bring in during the year to supplement your education activities. And you also be asked to help us think through how we design the next summer residency for the incoming cohort. You know, what speakers did you experience that you liked? What speakers would you want to see? And what can we do differently to ensure that that residency program provides the maximum benefit for you and those enrolled in the program? I will say that the Education Policy Fellows program is open to any School of Education graduate or applicant to a program. However, preference is given to students that are in this program. So, you know, the Education Policy Fellows program will get sort of the first sort of opportunities to be included in this program and receive the sort of financial, the additional financial support. If there are sort of additional spaces available, we may take applications from other programs. But in our last cohort, which was our first fellows program cohort, all of our fellows allocations were made to our master students. Next slide, please. All right, I think this is my chance to kick it over to James. Is that correct?
Thank you, Dr. Kramer. Yes, I'll take over from here. So again, thank you, Dr. Kramer, for the very wonderful program presentation. So we're going to continue by going over the application requirements. Applicants must submit a completed application, which can be found on our school's website. The application fee is $80. We'll need official transcripts from all post-secondary institutions attended. Again, we'll need all official transcripts, including institutions you may have taken courses but did not receive a degree. We'll need an essay and a current resume, 3 letters of recommendation, and the GRE is not required for this program. And please know, we are currently accepting applications for the Education Policy Program, and the application deadline date is April 17, 2023. There are a few additional steps you need to take in order to complete the application process if you're an international student. You must submit a TOEFL or IELTS score, and if your degree was completed outside of the U.S., you will need to complete a course-by-course evaluation. Additional information can be found on our school's website. The tuition for the 2022-2023 academic school year for the MS in Education Policy Program is $1,365 per credit. In addition to the tuition, please keep in mind the registration fee is $175 per semester, and the application fee is $80. For additional information on tuition and fees, please visit our school's website. And if you're interested in applying for financial aid, we strongly encourage you to apply for financial aid when you start your application. In addition to the Fellows Program that was shared by Dr. Kramer, keep in mind the School of Education, we offer a limited number of partial need-based institutional scholarships each year. SOE's endowed scholarship awards range on average from $800 to $3,000 per semester and are applied to tuition expenses beginning in the fall semester. To see if you qualify to apply for the endowed scholarship, please visit the Grants and Scholarship page on our school's website. Thank you for attending the Education Policy virtual webinar. At this time, we would like to open up the floor for questions. Okay, so Dr. Kramer, while we wait for questions from students, we do get some frequently asked questions here at the Office of Admissions. And the first one I would like to ask is, will I be able to participate in the residency through a virtual platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. And certainly the answer is going to be yes. I think there are benefits of the in-person, of being there in person, and we want to work with students where sort of travel funds or other sort of financial considerations are blocking them from traveling. But we do know a lot of our students work full time, and taking off 5 days is challenging. So yes, we will be offering sort of a virtual or hybrid type of option, particularly for the speakers. We'll try to do some of our cohort building virtually to include the virtual individuals as well. But I'm happy to have those conversations with all students after they sort of accept their admissions. And say, you know, if you can make it out for 2 days, or figure out ways to make sure that they get the full experience of that residency program. All right, I see some questions coming in. I'm going to answer the first one live from Dominique. What is the profile of the average student, age, credentials, etc.? I think what's unique about this program is that our students come from a very diverse set of perspectives, backgrounds, sort of understandings. You know, we have individuals who are sort of looking for sort of mid-career transitions, or individuals who are sort of young in their career but know they want to focus on education policy. You know, we have individuals who have been educators for years and have an education background, the traditional sort of like teacher education background, but want to sort of transition out of the classroom. And we have individuals who come from a public policy background and know they want to do education policy. So they studied political science and they went and worked on Capitol Hill for a few years and then came to our program to sort of transition into either a federal or state education policy environment. So I think we have sort of a modal student. And so I think that's a benefit, right? Having individuals who come from a variety of backgrounds helps us have really engaging discussions in our classes. All right, I'm just going to keep going down the list here, if that's okay. Is the fellowship program also entirely online, or are there other in-person opportunities outside of the seminar? Great question. So again, for those who are accepted as part of a education policy fellow, our meetings and sort of other, you know, sort of requirements are all going to be done virtually. But there may be opportunities for in-person, right? So if we have sort of an in-person, if one of our speakers is sort of local and we're going to host them on campus, our education policy fellows are the ones that we go to first to sort of have lunch with these speakers or have a small sort of coffee chat with them. And so if you could attend, that would be great in person. But all of our speakers that we offer to our program are all virtual. Okay. Percentage of students that are part-time, I wouldn't be able to attend full-time. Yeah, about 40%, 45%, I think, of our students are part-time. And so it's certainly not, it's certainly part of like the norm, and it's something that we have built our program around to be flexible for. I will say unequivocally, the staff of our program is entirely focused on your success. And so figuring out ways to support you through the program to ensure that you get all the necessary supports that you need as part of this program. So thanks, Carolyn. What percentage of incoming students to the program typically receive financial aid? I don't know if I could speak on the fellows program specifically, but Sion, do you know sort of generally about financial aid either through the need-based scholarship and the
Yes,
fellows
Dr.
program?
Kramer. I will say I don't have like the exact number in terms of the percentage, but I will share the majority of our SOE students receive some kind of like financial aid, whether they apply through the the FAFSA. Yes, so again, it's through loans that they are applying to.
And every year we award about between 7 and 10 education policy fellow scholarships. So gives you a sense of about 40% of our cohort receives if they apply, and are selected, could receive a scholarship as part of that program. Is it required to have a policy background? No, it's not. Again, I think we want individuals who have been who are passionate and understand education from a variety of perspectives. And they bring that perspective to these policy conversations, right? And so I think that's an important part of this program, is that we do have a mix of individuals who all they know is policy, right? They work on Capitol Hill, so they are deeply rooted in policy, but having that individual in the same class as somebody who's been a classroom teacher for 15 years and having them talk about, teacher recruitment policy is incredibly dynamic. And I think both sets benefit from that type of interaction. So we very much try to build a cohort where we have those diverse perspectives. It seems the program offers credits in education policy. Does the program basically focus on U.S. policy? It's a really good question. And I'm going to answer it directly and then maybe provide some sort of caveats there. Yes, our program does focus on primarily on U.S. education policy, but in the context of the international education policy class, and even in the education finance class, which I teach, there are always sort of comparisons to sort of the international education landscape and how that can impact sort of the U.S. education model. I would say at least 2 of our faculty have worked internationally in education organizations. And so they bring that perspective as well to the classes that they teach. What's the length, frequency, and time of classes typically occur? Great question. I think this is I think my sort of short answer is it varies across class. Some classes are completely asynchronous, meaning that there's like recorded lectures and you engage in sort of a discussion board and engage with cohorts. Other classes have sort of like, open check-ins or weekly open check-ins with faculty. Other classes meet for, an hour and a half a week at night, right? Again, we understand that the vast majority of our students are working full-time. We also know that our students come from a variety of time zones. And so, we are flexible in sort of that approach that we take to our curriculum. For example, in my course now that I'm teaching, I hold sort of an open lecture, open office hours, or sort of it's the intermediate stats class. I hold that on Thursdays at 7 p.m. So students can sort of come, ask their questions, and then have a conversation. In the ed finance class, we're going to meet every week for an hour and talk about a critical education finance policy. Well, I'm going to record those, of course, for those that can't make it, but it's going to be an opportunity to have that sort of, standard interaction with students. Can a person start part-time, then change to full-time? It's a great question. In theory, yes. In practice, that's really hard, because if you start part-time, and let's say you don't take the federal education policy course in your first fall, but then you want to go full-time the last 2 semesters, that federal education policy course isn't going to come back up again till the fall. It's easier to start full-time and go to part-time. It's a little bit harder to start part-time and go to full-time, because that just the courses are offered in sort of a set sequence. And if you miss the first offering of that course, then it's really hard to sort of make that up before the next cycle comes open. The question is, I may have missed this, but the full-time students can complete this program in 12 months. That's correct, right? I guess a little more than 12 months, because you go through your first summer. So you start in July and you would go all the way through the end of August, the following August, right? So essentially you would take 2 summer semesters and then 1 fall and 1 spring semester. Okay. I know Sion's probably answering the work study question that was asked. Other questions? I would say a question I sometimes get is, does this program focus exclusively on K-12 education policy? The answer is no. My background is in higher education policy. I've worked at a K-12 state agency. I've worked at the Department of Education. And so I focus on higher education policy from my research background. We have other faculty who have focused on early childhood education policy. And so while K-12 education policy gets a good bit of our conversation, we do find opportunities to talk about higher education and early childhood education policy as well.
Thank you, Dr. Kramer. Another question we get here in the Office of Admission is, what is the approximate cohort size for the summer 2023 start term?
Yeah, I think we want a cohort between 25 and 30 students. We think that is a sort of a optimal number for not only when you sort of allow for some electives and the cohort gets smaller, but really good discussion, but also really good network building. And so that's sort of our anticipated size. The current cohort right now is the first year cohort right now is 21. So I think our goal was to get between 25 and 30 students for this cohort. What would roughly be the time commitment per course per week? So that's a really good question, and a question that I'm not sure I can answer across all of our courses. I think, and I think it's somewhat dependent on your background and experiences, right? If it's been a while since you took a statistics course or a research methods course, those courses may take a little more time. If you're an expert in education finance, the education finance course may not take you a ton of, maybe less time commitment than, let's say, the outside the schoolhouse course, or the diversity in education course. And so I think we sort of strive for roughly around 3 hours per week per course, but that's just a guide. It's a guide for you or for our faculty, but again, it's going to be dependent on your sort of background and sort of baseline knowledge of the curriculum that's being taught.
All right, so it looks like there are no more questions, and I'm actually going to switch the slide for some contact information. Here on the slide, you'll see my colleague James McCarty's email address and phone number if you have any admissions-related questions. Any program-related questions, please reach out to Jenny Fordham, and her email address is on the slide. Thank you for your interest in the Johns Hopkins School of Education. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you, Dr. Kramer, again for the wonderful presentation. Have a great night, everyone.